doesn't do his job, Yaakov becomes Esav, and he also has to take his soulmate. And that's why he marries Leah too. And that becomes the Jewish nation. That's how Esav goes and does not use his free will to become what he could become, and he's off the system. And Yaakov has the entire job on his own. He takes on all the work of Esav plus his own work. Questions, thoughts, comments?
So that's a justification for having two wives? I mean,
yeah, well,
it's still against.
Yeah, it goes in combination with the fact that before the Torah was given, they weren't obligated to. The question was, though, even though they weren't obligated, why wouldn't they? In every situation, they kept the Torah because it was the right thing to do. So just because they're not obligated, why would you have to go outside the system? And the answer is because until the world came onto its solid ground, the Torah was given, so there was the world was going to be formed based on people's free will, and if Esav would have become that, things would have been different. Which is why the Talmud to this day calls Esav Yisrael Mumar. The Talmud doesn't refer to Esav the same way it does by Yishmael. Yishmael is the father of the Arab people. It's not called Jewish in any way. Esav, the Talmud refers to him as a Jewish heretic. They refer to him because he had a certain potential. He had the spark. It says he had and the Kabbalah says he had a spark of holiness in his mouth, in his head, and that's why his head gets buried in the Mas Machpelah, only his head, not the rest of him, because the rest of that holiness did not extend to him. Just a little bit, it stayed in his head, and the story is when they bury Jacob, so there's a whole fight breaks out, and then Esav gets his head chopped off, and his head gets buried in the cave of the patriarchs, because his head was where he had some part of holiness. He didn't let the whole thing come into his being. So at that stage of history, the potential was still being formed, and Torah wasn't commanded, so the option was, if somebody would misuse their free will and create a whole different dimension, that Yaakov could see that and then marry the two sisters. Yeah.
This may be a bit of a strange question, but if Hashem made the world, Hashem made the world, and everything was predestined to be a certain way, how then do you explain this kind of situation which is not what was intended? You said this is what was intended, but if that was what was intended, then that's what should have been.
Right.
So how do you explain this whole scenario if that was what was intended originally?
Right. It's a very good question. It's not a... Well, that's the question. The question is, though, this question is obviously it's a chapter I'm writing right now in the book, by the way.
It is a perplexing question.
Yeah, it's a very perplexing question. So I'm trying to see how to take this here, because there's different levels to this question. The one level of the question is that if God knows what I'm going to do, how do I have free will? In other words, if God knows right now that I'm going to pick up this wallet in 5 seconds, then I have no choice, because He knows I'm going to do it. 3, 2, 1, I had to do it. He knows I'm going to do it. So one question is, how does God know you're going to do something, and you still have free will? That's one kind of question. And then the second kind of question is a little bit different, which is what you're asking is if God has a plan for something, right? He determined He has a plan for this, how can you still have free will? And how can you do other than that? So I was saying you have free will, but how could you do other than what God wants, right? Right? If He has a plan, He wants things to play out this way, and you can't do against it, so you don't have free will then. But if you have free will, you can do against it, it's not going to be the plan that He wants. So I'll give you a little analogy. Imagine that you are the governor of a city, and you're very powerful. You're actually omnipotent governor. And you are the governor of this town, and you go and you say, the goal of this town is that I want everyone to take a parcel of land. You have 3 parcels of land to 3 people, and I want you to help the economy in this town. I want you to do something on your lands that can help the economy tremendously. My goal is, as the governor, is that the economy here should be fantastic, and you 3 people are in charge of this mission to go and to make the economy grow. Okay, person number 1, bachelor number 1, goes and he plants on the land, and he grows things, and he becomes a farmer, and does very, very well. Good. Bachelor number 2. He goes and he brings in sheep and cattle, and he raises them on the land, and he becomes very, very wealthy, and he helps the economy of the town with that. Bachelor number 3 says, I don't want any of this. I'm not helping the economy at all. I'm not going to do that. He takes a pickaxe, and he smashes the land, destroys it. Just keeps smashing it, and just tearing it apart, and putting holes throughout the land. He says, see, that governor is going to make me go and make this place wealthy. Destroys it. Now,